Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's executive webinar session on how to manage individual and corporate performance in the face of COVID-19. My name is Kevin Devecioglu. I am the Managing Director of Bimser International. Today, with my colleagues, we'll be talking about how you can manage your individual and corporate remote performance activities in the face of COVID-19. With me today, I have my colleagues, Alex Cavatero from MYOB Consulting. We'll be talking about fundamentals of performance management from the scope of ISO. I have my colleague, Sam Watt. He's our pre-sales software engineer from our engineering team, and he'll be performing a demonstration about our Ensemble performance management software. Also with us, I have my colleague, Furkan Bas. He is the product manager of Ensemble software system. So together, we'll be performing this executive webinar, and we'll be addressing your questions. First of all, I'd like to invite Alex to our virtual stage. He'll be addressing and talking about fundamentals of performance management from the scope of ISO and ISO compliance and quality management. And then from there on, we'll continue with Sam, and we'll talk more about performance management, especially nowadays we all work remotely, and remote work performance management becomes more and more important, and we'll address some more informative and educational information with you. Alex, if you're ready, why don't you get started?
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin, for inviting me to make this presentation, and thank you who joined, and hopefully this will be informing. And what I will focus on is managing the ISO quality management system, QMS, in a started MRS Consulting after about 5 years ago in 2015, after a lengthy career as a project manager in a large aerospace company, which is certified to the AS 9100 quality standard, which is the aerospace standard. So what I do currently is I provide consulting services for businesses to help them achieve and maintain ISO certification. And about 2 years ago, and that's a little more than 2 years ago, I became a Bimser Solutions partner. And what it is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to integrate one of the tools that Bimser offers, QDMS, in an ISO environment, and how it can be integrated to help you maintain and deal with all of the very large amount of data that is associated with an ISO system. And I also do a number of webinars on various ISO topics. So let's look at the what is a quality management system, and this is a pictorial representation. And it's shown as a plan, do, check, act cycle, which was developed by Deming, who was a quality guru. And in effect, what it is, it's a continuous improvement. So you really are continuously involved in the cycle. And basically, what happens is all your inputs come from the left, which is really driven by your customer requirements, the organization and its context, as well as the expectation of the interested parties. Okay, now the numbers, as you can see on the diagram, I have numbers in parentheses, and they refer to the ISO clause, which is on the right-hand side. So those are the ISO clauses that if you're ISO certified, that you have to maintain meet those requirements. Now, the first three are basically like an introduction, definition, and so on. But so the meat of the ISO requirements starts with clause 4, goes 4 through 10. So then as you go through the cycle, obviously there's a planning stage, which is 6, which feeds to your operations and support and resources, that what you need to really perform your operation. Then you evaluate your product, and then you look at discrepancies, improvements that you can work on. Then you perform the improvements, and then you go back to planning. Now, the important part of this, if you look at in the center of the diagram, is leadership, which is clause 5. And leadership plays a very important part in the ISO requirements. So leadership is really responsible to make sure that the quality management system is totally operational. Okay, next slide, please. So now we are all unfortunately living in a COVID environment. And how does it really impact the QMS implementation? Now, obviously, even without COVID, managing QMS is a challenging proposition. And unfortunately, it has become much more difficult to deal with managing QMS in a COVID environment. So how is it impacted? Well, obviously, unfortunately, and it hasn't really gotten any better. Now we're kind of in a second wave. A number of employees may be working off-site. And now there are obstacles in this environment of accessing all the company data, all the data that's related to QMS from a remote location. Now, if you're working on certain documents, you would like to have virtual control of those documents. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're actually editing or reviewing certain documents, you want to make sure that your inputs are integrated into this process, this review, or the development of those documents. So if they're not, then you can be working on certain changes which may not be in sync with the other changes or the status of the document that's currently being worked on. So you may have some conflicts. So it is very important that you have total control of all the documentation and records of the QMS. Another important issue is conducting audits. Now, traditionally, audits have been done on company premise, but now again, this is a much more restricted task, and audits may have to be performed off-site, which presents a kind of a complication. Now, obviously, to do that, you really need a software tool that will help you deal with all this data and still maintain and manage the QMS functionality, whether you're working on-site or remotely. And I will talk a little more about what are the features of this tool. So let's look into a little more details about what are some of the challenges in managing QMS. Well, let's look at, first of all, with documents and records. So records, really, it's all the data that is being collected within the organization. And records is a very important part of your continuous improvement cycle, because making decisions on what improvements to make is based on the records that you collect as part of your performing your QMS. So first of all, let's look at the storage media for both documents and records. Well, certainly you can store all of your documents or all that information as a hard copy in file cabinets, and that certainly is allowed. But it obviously that makes it much more difficult to manage, especially if you have to work off-site. So storing data digitally is obviously recommended, but again, here too, it could be scattered throughout the organizations. It could be loaded in different computers, or it could be in different departments. So again, it may not be centrally stored. So another issue is dealing with configuration control of the documents, and namely, as documents gets updated and changed, you really, to satisfy the ISO requirement, you have to have a traceability of the changes that are being made. So again, that's another important consideration of the QMS process. Now, root cause analysis, obviously, you have to deal with discrepancies, problems that occur with your product or your service. You have to perform analysis, root cause analysis, and the results of the analysis has to be saved and properly utilized to make the necessary improvements or corrections. So that's another consideration. Internal audits. Again, there's a lot of data that's being collected as part of your internal audit, and again, those are maintained as records, and any discrepancies of what is being audited should be used to make continuous improvements as part of your QMS cycle. Now, also, a very important part of QMS is your internal processes. So all the activities that are planned to support a certain process have to have a schedule and personnel assignments. And it's important to do that, but you also have to monitor the progress and in meeting the schedule for certain tasks, and you have to have a mechanism to monitor. And if you miss the deadlines or targets, then obviously that has to be reported to the supervisory chain so that appropriate action could be taken. So that's another very important part of supporting QMS. All right, next slide. Okay, now I just want to focus briefly on audits, because I mentioned before that audits were traditionally done on site, and now that could be a complication. So virtual audits can be supported, but there are certain requirements for you to do that. Now let's talk about audits. There's really two types of audits, or two categories of audits. First, as I've shown, the first three that I've identified are really audits that are performed by a certification body or a registrar. So this is where you pick a approved registrar that would perform an audit on your organization, and that would be either a certification audit, a recertification audit in case you failed your first certification audit, or maybe your certification elapsed and then you have to recertify. And then if for any ISO certification, you have to have a yearly surveillance audit, and that is all handled by a certification body. Also, you need to perform an internal audit at least yearly, and that could be done by either internal personnel, or you can hire a third party to do that. But in any case, those audits could be performed virtually, but you have to meet certain criteria. So first of all, obviously, you have to have a internet connection that meets certain speed and availability, and there are, again, many platforms available to do that, namely GoToMeeting, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype for Business. They're all acceptable to do a virtual audit. Obviously, it is a little more difficult to do that over over an internet connection. So your staff has to be able to communicate through those means. Now, a very important part is that all of the documents and records that are being audited have to then be available electronically, because if the auditor is located off-site, he has to have access to anything that he asks for. So now it's not that you provide the information to the auditor when he's asking for it, but he needs to have direct access to all of your processes, documents, and records. So that's a very important aspect that you must satisfy to really be able to conduct a virtual audit. Okay, next slide. All right, now again, I mentioned before that a software tool is really needed to really manage this, let's say, QMS under a COVID environment. And certainly, as I mentioned before in my introduction, the Bimser tool QDMS certainly offers tremendous capability in be able to carry out all of those functions. So let's quickly kind of summarize what are the features of such a tool, and specifically QDMS, to be able to manage your QMS system in a COVID environment. So obviously, it provides a central database for storing all of your QMS data, whether they're documents, their records, their processes, even if you do root cause analysis and you're using tools to do that, that could all be part of this system, of QDMS system. One thing, it's obviously it works on a cloud, or if you prefer, it could certainly work on an on-premise server with a mobile app. So whether you're working in the office or working at home or in the field, you have access to all of the information that you need. And again, like I said before, it gives you access to all of the information if you obviously authorized to have access to that information. And again, very important part is the administrator can set up read-write privileges to allow people to have access to any part of the QMS system. So that gives you a tremendous flexibility, and this is where the remote auditor comes in, where during the audit he can have a read access to all of the QMS data. As I mentioned before, the entire QMS data would be accessible remotely, and that's, you know, that's allows you to do virtual audits. And again, very important is now everything is centralized so that you don't have to worry about finding and looking for scattered documents and record throughout the organization. Everything is stored in the central database. Now, another part is it supports configuration control of all the documentation, and it actually stores all the changes that you're making to a document. In other words, it gives you the full traceability, including the reviewer's comments are really included in the history of the document changes. This is a very important and necessary feature that ISO requires you to have. And the other part is obviously very important to monitor your activities and schedules. And again, if you're not meeting your deadlines, then somebody in the management cycle should be aware of it to take appropriate action to correct the problem. Again, so the tool gives you that capability, and automatically, if you're not meeting a deadline, it would report this problem up the chain of command. So again, QDMS is a really very powerful tool that really allows you to work, both on-site or remotely, and certainly now in a COVID environment, it's, I think, almost indispensable to have that. So that's a very brief discussion of what the issues in a COVID environment, and certainly kind of give you a brief introduction to the QDMS tool. And thank you for your attention. And then I'll, I guess, pass it on to Kevin. Thank you.
Alex, thank you very much for sharing your insights. Much appreciated. It is always helpful to learn about fundamentals of performance management and quality management in the scope of ISO. So, Alex, much appreciated for your insights and sharing informative content with us. Now, I'd like to hand it over to Sam. Sam is our pre-sales software engineer from our engineering team. And today, we'll be talking about QDMS's integrated system called Ensemble software. So that is working seamlessly integrated with QDMS, our quality, risk, audit, and compliance management software. And Ensemble is linked to QDMS, and it is designed to help you manage your business processes. And especially we call it intelligent business process modeling and performance management software, because when once you design your business processes, once you model them, and once you support them with documentation as to policies, procedures, SOPs, and other guidance-related documents, it's going to be much easier for team members to perform their duties and tasks to increase their performance levels towards the corporate goals. So today we'll be talking about Ensemble, and my colleague Sam will be performing demonstration of Ensemble to show you intelligent business process modeling and management, as well as performance management in a digital environment. A brief information about Ensemble. Similar to QDMS, it's been in the market since 1998. We have more than 300 corporate customers using Ensemble. We have thousands of professional users using Ensemble to manage business process modeling as well as performance management. And we have a lot of references, corporations using Ensemble for a long time to manage performance management operations. Before further ado, I'd like to invite Sam, and Sam will be talking about Ensemble and how it looks, how it feels, and how it can help you manage your remote performance management operations. Sam, why don't you take over the screen and show us how Ensemble is running? Great, we can see your screen.
That's great. And thank you for joining today's webinar. And this is Sam, the pre-sales software engineer of Bimser International, who based in New York. And today I will demonstrate you Ensemble. This is our intelligent business process modeling and performance management system. So by using our system, it helps you to manage your processes and also your performance remotely, especially during this pandemic situation that we are facing in our country, in the US. So managing those digitally could help you to keep your operation running and keep tracking the performance of your employees and departments in your organization. So this is the home screen of Ensemble. Right after you log in, first of all, you will see different models that is available in your Ensemble system, which means Ensemble support you have different location or branches to be recorded in terms of their performance. So you can show them in Ensemble one by one, and also on the top you can see the calendar, which allows you to pick and choose the time period that you want to keep tracking the performance of this particular locations or branches. So let's say for this one, in this demonstration, I'm going to get back to the previous year, like the end of the 2019, and see the performance. And on the top and on the left, these are the modules in Assemble. First of all, is the scorecard, which allows you to keep, which will show or visualize all the data that you have entered in terms of the performance, and by the criteria that we have defined or we have predefined in the system, you will see also the specific logo or indicator that indicate the performance in that particular aspect. Also, we can have, you can also see the process model module, which is known as the process management module, which allows you to create the reference for the departments or for your employees based upon the SOP or the procedures of our company. And we can digitize those process diagram or model by using our system. Furthermore, we have our performance management module, as known as measurement module. So we can create different aspects in terms, and that we want to keep tracking the performance within our organization. So those can be managed in this module as well. And at last, this is the reporting tool, which allows you to create a different ready-made report in the system so that you can export your report and share with any responsible parties or for your own analyze for your future action plan. And as to example, before we get into the modules, this is a permission-based system, which means, first of all, different users will have its own credentials for logging into the system. And they are supposed to see what they are supposed to do based on the permissions that are granted to their account. Therefore, different users will have different permissions based on their role, position, profession, department, or group. As I'm now logging in as the admin, so that I have the full control of the system. And now, first of all, let us get into the process management module. In this module, we can create different process model. For example, for audit operation. What you will see on the screen is the diagram or the flow that we defined in the system. And it is a reference for the supervisors or managers of different departments. So they can always refer to this model and have a better understanding how they should perform in terms of different operations that we have in Assemble. For example, for audit operation, we will have this, and this will be the reference for the manager or the supervisors for performing audit operation. For example, as for internal audit department, they have to publish the planning, and then the auditor will check the information and perform this audit accordingly. And at last, the audit commission has to review it and close the audit if they accept the result or the answer that we receive in that particular audit operation. If not, we will send this back to the auditor and perform another audit. So by reading this diagram, it gives us a good idea like how we should perform our audit and what is the flow. And as for performing the actual audit operation, like inviting the auditor and also the auditee, then we can manage it in QDMS, which Assemble is integrated with. And right here, we can design different processes by using Assemble. As for another example, we have a suggestion management, so that we can open this up. And if any employees, they have any question in terms of the flow of this particular operation, they can always refer to Assemble and see what they have to do and who will be the approver or the responsible parties in this particular operation or process in our organization. Same as for the suggestion management in this example. The suggestion can be entered and then sent to the first assessment. And if it is okay or accepted in the first assessment stage, then we will send this to the specialist for content control. After that, we will take it step by step, like the action planning, and then performing the action, cost analyze, scoring, and feedback accordingly. So those can be visualized, which means your process can be visualized and modeled by using our system. And based upon our SOPs or the procedures that we have in our organization, you can see the diagram or the flow of this particular business process and how it should take place in our company. And on the left, let us get into the measurement module, as known as the performance management module. So we can create different, we call it the dimension in Assemble, which is the aspect that we want to keep tracking in terms of the performance, like the cost of quality appraisal, external failure, internal failure, and under different dimension, we can have different items there. So we can open this up, for example, the cost of quality appraisal. Then all your data will be shown in a bar chart, and it will also be visualized in a table and as a list as well. And we can set up different targets for different factors that we have defined in the system. So that's the alarm, which means once the actual data or the value it reached the alarm value, then the responsible person will be notified, and also an email reminder will be sent to the responsible person inbox. And you can keep tracking those information or the data that you have recorded in Assemble in this bar chart, and change the view, and those will be shown for different months of this year. And we can also define the criteria for this particular factor, like how it will be indicated as good, moderate, or bad. And we can upload our own icon for as an indicator in. As for this example, now you can see in this particular period, like in this time frame, December 2019, the actual value is between or it is in the moderate standard. And as for year to date, like considering this annually, we are also doing moderate in terms of this factor, like cost of operation. So as for our future action planning, we will realize that there's a room for our improvement in terms of the cost of quality appraisal. And therefore, we can take certain to have our continuous improvements in terms of the performance in our company. And you can always get into other dimension that we have defined in the system and open this up in Assemble for our analyze. Similar to the one I've just shown, you can see the data now. It is cost of quality external failure. The data will be shown in a bar chart and also as a table for you to keep tracking the performance. And as for this dimension, there's different elements underneath, and you can see different elements how we are doing. As for the green phase, I would say, or the indicator in green color, you will see we are doing well, which means we are doing good. And as for the yellow indicator, you can see that we are doing moderate, and we can move our cursor and see the actual value of these particular elements. so that we can have a better understanding as for this one, like because of the external failure, we have our OT, overtime labor, in terms of in order to deal with it, so that we can keep tracking, like in order to have a better performance, can we do something on the overtime labor, for example, for reducing our costs and also increasing our performance. And right here in the main menu, you can also see the scorecard. And as for the scorecard, we will show all your dimension and the factors and visualize in this scorecard as well. The one I've just shown, you have to go into different dimension in order to track the performance in your company. And by using the scorecard, those dimensions and factors will be shown in an overview, so that you can keep tracking in one page. As for this one, those are the dimensions that we have defined in the system, like the one, those I've just shown, cost of quality appraisal, cost of quality external failure. So you can find them in a list right here in the scorecard, and you can keep tracking the status and also the actual value. All the data that you have defined and also entered in example will be shown in this list. In addition, you can also change the view and keep tracking the performance or monitoring the performance in this particular time frame as well. All the status will be shown with the indicator that we have defined in the system based upon the criteria that we have also set up. And you can keep tracking those dimensions and also the factor under this particular dimension as well. For example, this is the classic view, and the factors or the elements in this dimension will also be shown. Taking the cost of quality appraisal as an example again, you can see they're doing moderate in this particular time frame, December 2019. But as for the elements under this dimension, the testing, like incoming inspection, we are doing good. But as for the GP12, this is another dimensions, elements here, we are doing moderate, which means we should have the improvement in terms of GP-12 other than the other elements in order to have a better performance to the whole dimension. So it's helped you to do your analyze dimension by dimension and also factors by factors, so that we can always pinpoint to the factors that we should get our improvement. And on the top, you can always export this scorecard into PDF or Excel for sharing with any responsible parties, especially while you're preparing your internal meeting. Then you can export this report or connect to example directly and put this scorecard on your screen and share your analysis and your thoughts within your company. And at last, there is a reporting tool that allows us to create the ready-made report. For example, we can have a report like the process priority report, the process link report, and the revision history report. As for the business process model that we have, it will be always updated by the time we have our business in order to deal with different situations. For example, like now we're under the COVID-19, so most of us are working from home or remotely, so that our business process will also update based on this. And as for the version of the business process model that we have in Assemble, you can create the report and keep tracking what we have updated as well. And as for the performance management module, we have our report as well, like the authorization report, and also the scorecard report, the performance report, and the data input report as well. So those can be exported as Excel and PDF in order to keep tracking what we have entered and defined in the system, so that you can have a better understanding and also the overview of the system in terms of all the settings and configurations as well. This comes to the end of my demonstration of Assemble. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for your demonstration. Let me take over the screen and we can continue our webinar session. Great. So as my Ensemble, you can link your policies, procedures, and other details for every single business process that you have at your organization. And you can set your performance goals by defining them and setting goals individually as well as for your corporation. And you can see the progress. You can monitor the activities as for your performance as an individual, team member, an employee, or as corporation. And then it follows with reports and other monitoring tools and other information that we have available on Ensemble. So when we think about Ensemble, it's actually very practical, especially nowadays. Many of us work remotely, and in this case, what we need to be doing is we need to be focusing on being able to work remotely, and so that we can digitize our operations and we can set our performance goals and we can monitor remotely with the help of Ensemble. So I'll take it from here and I'll share more information about our company, as well as I'd like to share some information with you as to remote work and remote performance management. We had a chance to see some surveys as to what employees are thinking about remote work and what also employers and employees, both sides actually, are thinking about working remotely, and what are the projections as to what is coming after COVID-19, as well as during COVID-19. But first of all, let me introduce our company a little bit, a couple of slides, and then I'll talk more about those surveys that I mentioned earlier. Our company is Bimser International. We are a New York-based enterprise software maker since 1998. We have global presence. In a sense, we help companies adopt digital transformation and simplify their processes. We have global presence, as you see on the map, while we are based in New York, in North America. We are also active in Europe, in Middle East, and thanks to our channel partner network, we are very active in South America, Africa, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. So we are a group of companies that you see on the map. We are very active in various ERP ecosystems, as you see on the screen. SAP, Microsoft, and others are some of them. As for quality management system in place, we are ISO 9001 certified and ISO 27001 certified. So we have a quality management system in place, and we have also systems and procedures to push and encourage continuous improvement, which we take it very seriously as an organization. Since 1998, we focus on these 4 products: EBA, BIM, QDMS, and Ensemble. EBA is our workflow, document management, and electronic business automation platform. It helps you manage your business processes remotely, digitally, no matter where you are. BIM is designed to help you manage your assets and your maintenance operations, your facility and your energy management operations. So your machinery, equipment, cars, trucks, buildings, you can manage the maintenance operations of your assets, and you can increase the lifetime of your corporate equipment and machinery. QDMS is our quality, risk, audit, and compliance management software. It is designed to help you manage your quality management systems: ISO, SQF, BRC, FTA, and other quality management and regulatory standards can be managed on QDMS digitally in a paperless work environment. As my colleague Sam demonstrated earlier, Ensemble is an intelligent business process modeling and performance management software. You can also see we develop a contract management application on EBA. Since EBA is an electronic business automation platform, contract management is one of the applications that we develop to help you manage your contracts in a digital paperless environment. And we have a new product coming up called Synergy. Synergy is cloud native version of EBA, so you can manage your business processes in a cloud environment remotely, no matter where you are. So that's basically a brief introduction as to what we have been doing since 1998. As for our customers, we have a lot of reputable customers, and also we have a lot of experience in different industries. You can imagine, we have thousands of corporate customers and millions of professional users that we have, and which we are proud of. So let's talk about performance management a little bit. So how to manage individual and corporate management remotely in the face of COVID-19 nowadays. So things change a lot since COVID-19, and right now many of us working remotely, either full-time working remotely or partially working remotely. So remote work here to stay, that's how it looks, or at least it'll affect our work environment even after COVID-19 is gone. That's how it looks. For example, even Google announced for employees to work from home until the summer of 2021. So Google has about 100,000 employees. So just to get an idea, this is an example. For example, recently, what type of large organizations have been doing and taking their positions as to working remotely. Also, we have some also surveys that we had a chance to review, and I'd like to also share with you as to what executives, employers are thinking about working remotely, and what employees, team members are thinking about working remotely now, before, now, and after COVID-19. So one of the questions, for example, that's a PwC survey that we had a chance to review. For example, the question is, what percent of your office employees do you anticipate will work remotely at least one day a week? So before, for example, COVID-19, we were getting different results, right? If you meaning most. So when we look at for example, after COVID-19, projected there is going to be a lot of employees will be working based on the projections of executives. During COVID-19, it's 77%. Most of them will be, most of them are working remotely. Before COVID-19, it was 39%. So after COVID-19, the projection is going to be 55%. So what we are seeing is that after COVID-19, there is going to be more people working remotely comparison to before COVID-19. So it's going to be less than during COVID-19, but more than before COVID-19 time period as we experienced. Another question actually from the same survey is, how often did you work remotely before COVID-19, and how often would you like to once COVID-19 is no longer a concern? So let's look at 4 days per week or 5 days per week. So before, just 3% of them will be interested in working remotely 4 days per week. But after COVID-19, it's 9%, for example. 5 days a week. Before it was 18%. Now it's 32%. So it is actually very interesting. One of the questions, for example, 39% of them didn't work remotely at all before COVID-19. But after COVID-19, 8% of them would like to work remotely, for instance. So it is actually showing us the shift that is actually happening in the marketplace, both on the employer side and also for the employee side when we look at the market. Also, another survey actually furthering employees' aspirations as for working remotely. In a survey where 77% of respondents are currently working from home, they share that trust is a vital aspect of working remotely, and it affects the effectiveness of employees, for example. Also, 90% of respondents are open to their employees having greater insights into their daily productivity, for example. So they're okay for being transparent and being really open to how they are performing and how they are doing their job, even while they are working remotely. And 47% of respondents say that they had been actually frustrated by their efforts not being recognized. So they like to be recognized more as team members. They are okay to be transparent, clear about how they are actually running their work, And also in a survey that we are seeing right now, 77% of respondents actually currently working from home due to COVID-19. So what do we get from here as for the survey? So some takeaways for businesses and professionals. So what we are learning when we actually review these surveys, some of the takeaways are, for example, offices are here to stay, but to evolve. So there is going to be more people working remotely, but it's going to be more than before COVID-19, but less than during COVID-19 time period. That's how it looks. So the offices are here to stay, but it's going to be a different setup, maybe a smaller setup, maybe a different desk style, different work environment, as people may have a mix of working remotely or at the office at the same time. So there is going to be some change, but offices are here to stay. So they are not going anywhere, but it's going to be actually changing. Another thing is remote work is here to stay, but to offer new challenges regarding collaboration, for example, and how to cooperate with the team members. So that is also an important thing to keep in mind when we think about it. Also, employees want to have options of working remotely as an option. And employees are okay for employers to have greater insights and visibility regarding their performance and how they do actually perform their tasks. And employees are not happy about not being recognized for their work and effort. So these are the takeaways based on these two different surveys from the points of employers as well as employees when we look at it. So how do we manage performance while we are actually working remotely? So the way that actually we are looking at here is from the quality management point of view and as well as from digital transformation point of view. That's how we are actually approaching managing performance while working remotely in the face of COVID-19. So let's talk about digital transformation a little bit. What is digital transformation? It is as simple as we actually put together and found this definition. Digital transformation is adapting an organization's structure and its strategy to capture opportunities enabled by technology. So there are benefits of digital transformation when we adapt digital transformation in our organizations, being more competitive, reducing costs, being more productive, being more efficient, increasing customer satisfaction, increasing sales, and also being more compliant to regulations and quality management systems, for example. So digital transformation is here to stay, and it will be basically changing our business models as well as the way that we are working and we are running our businesses. That's for sure. So this is one side of the concept that we are looking at when we like to handle performance management while working remotely. Another point that we like to talk about is quality. So what is quality? Basically, quality is conformance to requirements. So what customer needs, what are the customer requirements, and how do we conform to it? That's actually what the quality is, and that is what is important. So also the cost of quality is expense of doing things wrong. So when we look at these definition, it's actually valid for every single thing that we are doing at our companies. While we are operating, while we are performing as individuals, the digital transformation concept and quality concept, actually, they work together. Also, Alex mentioned some of these parts, for example. So when we look at the quality, there are principles of quality management coming from ISO, as Alex mentioned earlier, and he's the expert of this subject. So I'll just talk about briefly. For example, these principles are universal, no matter where you go, North America, South America, you go Europe, Asia. These are the principles of quality management as ISO published for us as business people. So there are principles, and these principles include especially being customer focused. The leadership is very important, as Alex mentioned earlier. Engaging employees, people, and stakeholders, for example, of organization is critical. ISO also looks at business as processes. So every single operation that we have actually consists of various processes. And improvement is the key. That's what we have been talking about as for continuous improvement. And while we are making decisions, we need to also make decisions based on evidence. So where do we keep the evidence? Some companies keep evidence on paper. Some of them keep them on spreadsheets or other types of medium, for example. However, principles of quality management dictates that we need to make decisions based on evidence. And relationship management is very important as to managing relationships with employees, stakeholders, and other communities and groups within and around our organization. So we'll be talking more about continuous improvement when we talk about performance management. The core piece of the quality management is to increase customer satisfaction, having a safe work environment, producing safe products and services, and having the continuous improvement culture in place. That's why actually performance management is very important, because from the quality management point of view, that's a principle. And from the digital transformation point of view, that's a must. So while we are talking about performance management in coming slides, we'll be combining these two approaches, digital transformation and quality management concepts, to address performance management while we are working remotely. And there are tools that we can use for performance management. This one, for example, Alex talked about this in detail. Plan, do, check, X cycle is critical, and it is actually very important. And that's a cycle, so it's actually ongoing. Alex mentioned and talked about this in detail earlier, so I'll just share as a tool that you can consider while you are managing your corporate as well as individual performance operations. And I can talk about some other tools and models that we put together. And here is the model that actually we focus on. We call it the remote performance management model, and it has 4 pieces. The first piece is actually modeling your business process, which actually, there are different ways to model your business processes. One of them is actually through a software, right? So just like my colleague Sam demonstrated earlier, you can actually model your business processes with the help of Ensemble software. You can use other tools, of course, as well, while you're modeling your business operations and processes. The second piece is defining your performance criteria, whether that's for corporate performance management or department performance management or individual performance management. You need to define what is going to be your criteria as to managing and evaluating performance. And then you need to assign it to departments, to individuals, and other teams. And the third piece is ongoing performance and KPI monitoring. There's actually daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. You need to monitor and you need to take action accordingly. So you don't want to wait till the end of the year to take action for performance management purposes. And finally, performance reviews and reports are critical for continuous improvements. So let's talk about these models one by one, piece by piece. So the first piece is modeling the process, business process modeling. As I mentioned, there are different tools that you can use in addition to a software. Whether you use a software or not, you can use a flow chart, you can use a Gantt chart, you can use a PERT chart, for example, to model your business processes, so that departments, employees, and team members can understand what type of steps that you need to be taken to run your business process by process. There is universal process notation, there is process modeling notation, and there are other, of course, steps. So the critical thing is, while you are actually modeling and describing your business process, it's important to add policies and procedures and documents and SOP-related documentation to every single piece of your business process. That'll basically be a guide, and it's going to offer instructions to your team members as to understand what type of steps they need to be taken, and help them understand the risk of each step that they are taking, which is very critical. The second piece is basically defining the process. One of the tools that we can use called Turtle Diagram, that is designed to help you understand your business processes and define, for example, what type of resources you'll be using, what type of methods you'll be using as part of your process, as well as what's going to be the measures, what type of results that you want to be getting in. So there's going to be insights, inputs, as well as there's going to be outputs as part of the diagram. It really looks like a turtle. That's why it's called a turtle. So we learned these type of tools from ASQ, American Society for Quality, that they publish it and they make it available for individuals as well as corporations. So this is something that you can consider as a tool to use while you are defining your process after modeling your business process, for example. And then the third piece is setting performance goals and monitoring the performance. So we all know about being smart, being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based goals, basically. So while we are setting our goals, whether that's corporate or individual or team-based performance goal setting, it has to be smart, basically, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. You can have goals for corporations, departments, employee performance, employee development, leadership, and you can have goals for managers. So it is important to follow these principles when you are setting your goals at your organization. Oh, and it's right after that, you need to also periodically monitor your performance operations and communicate as to how individuals or departments or teams are doing. The fourth piece is performance review and continuous improvement. So the way that we can actually be taking action for continuous improvement is by feedback. Alex mentioned earlier, and he talked about audits, for example. So audit is an important way to get feedback as to how we are doing as a corporation, as a department, as a team, as an individual, at the organization. So that is actually very helpful to have audits. These audits may be internal audits, audits may be external audits. In addition, we can also get feedback as for surveys, for example. That's another tool that we can always use to get the surveys. We can have also suggestions from our team members, from our managers, from our colleagues, and also another tool that to get feedback, is, for example, 360-degree feedback. For example, not only getting from one party, from getting multiple parties as to how you are doing as an individual organization. So once we get the feedback, we can analyze it and we can study it. So during these studies, if there are any issues and problems, we need to also address root causes of those issues so that we can address them and we can basically get rid of them once and for all. There are different tools that we can use for root cause analysis. Again, our sources are American Society for Quality for these, and typical ones for root cause analysis in business world as well as in quality management communities are 5Y, Ishikawa, Fishbone, 80 analysis, and Pareto analysis. That's some of them is to address root cause analysis. There is no one way of analyzing root causes. There may be different ways and different approaches. So you decide which one is ideal for your organization. We also have digitized tools as to help you use these root cause analysis. That is why we call these actually webinar part 1. There's going to be part 2 where we'll be talking more about more practical tools that you can use in a digital environment while managing performance remotely or on site. After analyzing the feedback and performing root cause analysis, we need to take corrective actions based on our studies. So these corrective actions are actionable. You need to follow up. You need to also communicate these corrective actions with team members, and training is key. If there is any improvement in your business processes, without the training, you cannot really make it happen. You'll just stay on your reports. So training is essential. It's vital for corrective actions to stay and make positive impact at your organization for continuous improvement. And then, of course, plan, do, check, X cycle is also very important as to make sure you keep improving yourself, you keep improving your team members, and you keep improving your organization's process by process. And one of the tools that also we can use is called Balanced Scorecard. That's designed to help organizations, especially corporations, to manage performance. So that's actually part of Ensemble as well as you saw during the demonstration. So there's financial perspective, there's customer perspective, learning and growth perspective, and internal process perspective as to how you are doing as an organization. So you can look at your corporate performance from different angles. That is actually very tough. It's actually very common in business world. And we had a chance to digitize this process to help you actually automate it and run it in a more robust environment. And we'll be showing these also in coming webinar as well when the time comes, as part 2 of this webinar. And finally, using technology for remote performance is very important. There are different tools that you can see and you can use as you see on our slide. One of them that we address today is business process modeling as Ensemble, as a business process modeling software. There are other software tools and other actually ways to manage your remote performance activities. And these are important nowadays. They have been always important. However, since most of us working remotely due to COVID-19 nowadays, and as per surveys and as per the feedback that we are getting from the market, these tools will here to stay and will be making our job much easier as for remote performance management. That's how it looks. And we are happy to be part of this process with our remote performance management experience and our software tools in the scope of digital transformation. Okay, great. So let's see if we have any questions. One of the questions actually we have been getting about is actually managing performance with the help of mobile application of Ensemble. So if there is any mobile application of Ensemble is available to remotely monitor KPIs and to take actions. So I can address that. So we have a mobile application as for Ensemble, and that is also you can use it for remote performance management, as well as we have it's also available for QDMS as well, our quality risk audit and compliance management software to help you manage your quality management system for continuous improvement, which is also improving performance management, which is very, very important and very practical nowadays since many people are working remotely. There are questions about pricing, so you can send us an email and we can talk about pricing and our pricing model as for how we are assisting you as to your performance management needs, as well as pricing and other commercial data. So we keep our contact information on the screen. So if you'd like to continue this conversation, if you have any questions, please send us an email so we can address your questions. We can schedule time and we can put more in detail as to how we can help you digitize your business processes and help you manage your performance management operations. Before we end our webinar, I'd like to invite you to our YouTube channel, Bimser International YouTube channel. We have product videos as well as webinar recordings available, so you can watch and you can share with your contacts. And we believe it's very informative. And we have hundreds of videos available on our YouTube channel and increasing on weekly basis. Also, let me remind you that we have an Eventbrite page where you can see our coming webinar sessions. You know, of those that you like, you're interested, you can register and you can join us in coming weeks. I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for your interest. We all are looking forward to seeing you at our coming executive webinar session. Thank you and have a nice day.